The C-130 transport plane touched down at Dover Air Force Base with the familiar jolt that meant home. After 18 months in Afghanistan, Staff Sergeant Emily Carter had imagined this moment countless times. She'd pictured Elena's bright smile, Ryan's awkward hug, maybe even tears of joy. What she hadn't imagined was the empty terminal. I stood in the baggage claim for 20 minutes, watching other soldiers reunite with their families, wives crying, children squealing, parents holding signs. The noise of joy surrounded me while I checked my phone for the third time. No messages. No missed calls. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The drive home in my rental car felt longer than usual. Each familiar landmark should have brought comfort, but instead, they highlighted how much had changed. The old Miller farm had been subdivided. The diner where Dad used to take us for Sunday breakfast was now a chain restaurant. Even the trees seemed different, fuller somehow, as if life had continued growing without me. Our family home sat at the end of Maple Street, the same pale yellow Victorian with white trim that Mom had insisted on painting every 3 years. Dad's old truck was gone from the driveway, replaced by a sleek silver sedan I didn't recognize. Elena's car, maybe. The lawn was perfectly manicured, not a dandelion in sight. Dad would have been proud. The front door opened before I could knock. Elena appeared, looking polished in a way that seemed foreign to our old house. Her dark hair was styled, her makeup perfect, and she wore clothes that probably cost more than my monthly combat pay. "Emily." Her voice was flat, like she was greeting a door-to-door salesman. "You're early." "The flight got in ahead of schedule. I tried calling, but..." "We weren't expecting you." She didn't step aside to let me in. Behind her, I caught a glimpse of Ryan hovering in the hallway. He looked away when our eyes met. "Can I come in? It's my home, too." Elena's smile was sharp as glass. "Actually, we need to talk about that." She finally moved aside, but her gesture felt more like a challenge than a welcome. The living room looked like it had been staged for a magazine. Gone were Mom's crocheted Afghans, Dad's reading chair, the family photos that had cluttered every surface. Instead, everything was minimalist and cold, expensive. I noticed the absence immediately. Where was the photo of Dad in his Navy uniform, the one of all of us at Christmas 3 years ago? Ryan sat perched on the pristine white sofa, looking like he wanted to disappear into the cushions. At 26, he'd always been the gentle one, the peacemaker, but something about his posture now seemed defeated. "Sit," Emily commanded, taking the chair across from me. She folded her hands in her lap like she was conducting a business meeting. "Where's Mom?" I asked, scanning the room for any sign of Margaret Carter's presence. "That's part of what we need to discuss." Emily's tone remained perfectly controlled. "Emily, you've been gone for 18 months. Before that, it was 2 years in Germany, then that stint in Korea. You've missed everything." The words hit like shrapnel. I was serving my country. I sent money home every month to help with... "To help with what?" Emily interrupted. "To assuage your guilt for never being here when we actually needed you?" Ryan shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. "I was deployed," I said, keeping my voice steady the way the Army had trained me. "I couldn't just leave." "No, you chose not to leave. Dad's funeral? You were essential personnel. Mom's surgery? Mission critical. Ryan's college graduation? Training exercise." She counted on her fingers like she was reciting charges at a court-martial. Each accusation stung because there was truth in it. But what choice had I had? The Army doesn't pause for family emergencies. You serve when and where you're needed. "We learned to take care of ourselves," Emily continued. "We learned we don't need you anymore." The words hung in the air like smoke from an explosion. Don't need you anymore. I'd faced enemy fire, navigated political minefields with Afghan officials, led soldiers through impossible situations, but nothing had prepared me for this. "Elena," Ryan finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe we should..." "Should what?" She turned on him with the same cold precision. "Pretend like nothing has changed? Pretend like we've been managing everything while she played soldier halfway around the world?" "I wasn't playing anything," I said, heat creeping into my voice. "I was doing my job, protecting people, including this family." Elena laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Protecting us? From what?" The only thing we needed protection from was wondering if you'd bother to show up for the next crisis. I looked at Ryan, searching for an ally, but he was studying his hands like they held the answers to everything. Ryan, you feel this way too? He raised his eyes to mine, and I saw guilt there, and fear. Emily, things have been complicated. Where is Mom? I repeated, louder this time. Elena and Ryan exchanged a look that made my chest tighten. It was the kind of look siblings share when they're hiding something big.
Mom needed more care than we could provide here, Elena said carefully. With Ryan working and me managing everything else, we made the decision to place her in a facility. What facility? What kind of care? My military training kicked in. Gather intel, assess the situation, identify the threats. Sunset Manor. It's a private care facility about 30 miles north. She has her own room, professional nursing staff, activities. You put her in a nursing home? The words came out sharper than I intended. It's not a nursing home, Elena snapped. It's a high-end care community. Very expensive, which brings us to the other thing we need to discuss. I waited, every instinct I'd developed in the Army telling me I wasn't going to like what came next. Dad's estate, the inheritance. We've had to make some decisions about how to manage the family's finances. What kind of decisions? Elena's smile was triumphant. The kind that needed to be made by people who were actually here. Sunset Manor looked exactly like what it was, an expensive place to warehouse people nobody wanted to deal with. The building was modern, all glass and steel with manicured gardens that nobody seemed to be enjoying. A brass plaque by the entrance promised dignified care in a luxury environment. The phrase made my stomach turn. I'd driven straight here after leaving the house, Elena's words still echoing in my head. We don't need you anymore. The GPS had taken me through increasingly rural roads until I reached this sterile monument to family abandonment. The lobby smelled like industrial disinfectant, masked with artificial lavender. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. A receptionist with 2 bright teeth checked my ID and handed me a visitor's badge. Mrs. Carter is in the Serenity Wing, room 247. Just follow the blue line on the floor. The blue line led me through corridors lined with generic landscape paintings. I passed other residents, some in wheelchairs, staring at nothing, others shuffling along with walkers. A few looked up as I passed, hope flickering in their eyes before dying when they realized I wasn't there for them. Room 247 was at the end of the hall. I knocked gently before pushing open the door. Mom? Margaret Carter was sitting in a chair by the window, looking smaller than I remembered. At 73, she'd always been petite, but now she seemed fragile in a way that made my heart clench. Her silver hair was neatly styled, probably by the staff, but her clothes hung loose on her frame. Emily? Voice was uncertain, like she wasn't sure I was real. Emily, is it really you? I crossed the room in 3 quick strides and knelt beside her chair. It's me, Mom. I'm home. Her hands shook as she reached for my face, tracing my features like a blind person reading Braille. You're so thin. Are they feeding you enough in that place? I'm fine, Mom, but what about you? How are you feeling? She glanced toward the door, then lowered her voice. I don't like it here, honey. The food is bland and the nurses, they're nice enough, but they don't know me. They don't know that I like my coffee black or that I can't sleep without my lavender pillow. I looked around the small room. It was clean and functional, with a hospital bed, a small dresser, and 2 chairs, but it was devoid of personality. Where were her things? The quilt she'd made for her 40th wedding anniversary? The photo of Dad in his Navy uniform? The collection of ceramic birds she'd been gathering since I was a child? Where are your things, Mom? Your photos? Your mementos? Her expression grew confused, almost childlike. She said they wouldn't fit. She said we had to pack light. She gestured helplessly at the bare walls. I kept asking for my picture of your father, but she said it would make me sad. Anger flared in my chest, but I kept my voice gentle. Tell me about coming here. Who decided you needed this level of care? Elena said it was for the best. She showed me papers, all official-looking, said I needed to sign them for my own good. Margaret's eyes grew distant. I didn't understand all the legal words, but she was so insistent. She said you agreed it was the right thing to do. I agreed? The words came out like a gunshot. Mom, I didn't know anything about this. I would never have agreed to put you somewhere you didn't want to be. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. But Elena said you thought I was becoming too much trouble, that you didn't want to be burdened with an old woman when you got back. I felt something break inside me. Elena hadn't just hidden this decision from me. She'd used my name to justify it. She'd made our mother believe that I, the daughter who'd sent money home every month, who'd called whenever possible, despite time zone complications, who'd written letters when calls weren't possible, had abandoned her. Mom, listen to me. I took her hands in mine. They were so cold, so fragile. I would never say that. I would never think that. You are not a burden. You are my mother, and I love you. But the papers. What papers? Can you tell me more about what you signed?
Margaret's brow furrowed in concentration. There were so many. Elena said they were about the house, about medical decisions. She said she needed to be able to help me if something happened and you were overseas. It made sense at the time. Medical power of attorney. Possibly financial power of attorney, too. My sister had systematically stripped me of any legal standing in our family while I was deployed. The realization hit me like incoming artillery. Did you sign anything about Dad's inheritance? About the will? Oh, yes. Elena explained that too. She said the original will was outdated, that it didn't account for how much you'd changed. She said you'd become career military and wouldn't want to be tied down with family responsibilities. Every word was a knife twist. Elena had painted me as someone who'd chosen duty over family, who'd rather chase promotions than care for her mother. And she'd done it so skillfully that Mom had believed it. I brought you something, I said, pulling out my phone. I showed her the photos I'd taken throughout my deployment. Not the official ones, but the personal shots. Me writing letters to her. Me holding a care package she'd sent with her favorite cookies. Me talking to her stuffed elephant that had somehow become our deployment mascot. You kept Mr. Peanuts? She asked, touching the screen with wonder. The elephant had been a childhood toy that she'd insisted on packing in one of my care packages. He kept me company, reminded me of home, reminded me why I was serving. To protect the people I love. Margaret began to cry, but they weren't tears of sadness anymore. I knew something didn't feel right. Elena was so insistent, but every time I questioned her, she'd say you'd agreed to everything. She'd say you trusted her judgment. Mom, I need you to remember everything you can about those papers. Who else was there? Was Ryan there? Any lawyers or witnesses? There was a lawyer, I think, a young man in an expensive suit. Elena called him her attorney. Ryan was there for some of them, but he kept going outside to smoke. He seemed upset about something, but he wouldn't talk to me about it. Ryan knew. My younger brother, the one who'd always looked up to me, had watched Elena manipulate my mother and done nothing to stop it. The betrayal was complete. Mrs. Carter? A nurse appeared in the doorway, all professional smiles. It's time for your afternoon medication. I stood up slowly, every muscle in my body coiled with tension. How long has she been on this medication schedule? Since she arrived. Dr. Hendricks adjusted her prescriptions to help with anxiety and sleep issues. The nurse rattled off a list of drugs I didn't recognize. What anxiety issues? My mother never had problems sleeping before. The nurse looked uncomfortable. Well, the transition to care facilities can be difficult. Sometimes residents need help adjusting. I helped Mom take her pills, but my mind was racing. Elena had convinced doctors that Margaret needed medication for problems she'd never had before coming here. Problems that might have been caused by the trauma of being uprooted from her home and told her oldest daughter had abandoned her. I have to go now, Mom, but I'll be back soon. Very soon. And I'm going to figure out how to make this right. Margaret gripped my hand with surprising strength. Emily, be careful with Elena. She's
different now. Since your father died, since you've been away, she's become someone I don't recognize. As I walked back through those sterile corridors, past the other forgotten parents and grandparents, I felt something I hadn't experienced since my first combat mission, that crystalline clarity that comes when you realize you're at war. Elena thought she'd won by isolating Mom, by manipulating legal documents, by convincing everyone that I'd chosen the army over my family. She was about to learn what happened when you declared war on a soldier. The house was dark when I returned, but Elena's silver sedan was still in the driveway. I found her in the kitchen, sitting at the breakfast bar with a glass of wine and a stack of papers spread in front of her. She looked up when I entered, her expression carefully neutral. "How was your visit?" she asked, as if she were inquiring about the weather. "Enlightening." I remained standing, keeping the kitchen island between us. In Afghanistan, I'd learned to read terrain before engaging. This kitchen, once the warm heart of our family home, was now enemy territory. Elena took a sip of her wine with deliberate care. "I'm sure it was emotional seeing her like that, but you have to understand, Emily, she's not the same woman she was when you left. The confusion, the memory issues. The only confusion I saw was about why her daughter would abandon her. I imagine her surprise when I told her I'd never agreed to any of this." Something flickered behind Elena's eyes, but her smile remained fixed. "Mom's memory isn't what it used to be. Sometimes she misunderstands things. Like signing over power of attorney to you? Like changing Dad's will? Those seem like pretty specific things to misunderstand." Elena set down her wine glass with deliberate care. "Those were necessary decisions made by the people who were actually here to make them. You forfeited your right to have input when you chose your precious army over your family."
I chose to serve my country. I chose to send money home every month to help support this family. I chose to call Mom every week despite the time difference and security restrictions. My control was starting to slip, and Elena could sense it. "How noble of you," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "The martyred soldier, sacrificing herself for the greater good. Tell me, Emily, how did it feel to miss Dad's last birthday, his last Christmas, his last everything?" The words hit their target. I'd been in Korea when Dad had his first heart attack. I'd managed emergency leave for the funeral, but only barely. The guilt had eaten at me for months. Dad understood why I couldn't always be here. He supported my service. Dad was too polite to tell you how disappointed he was. But I was here. I saw him waiting for the phone for calls that never came. I watched him make excuses for why his oldest daughter couldn't be bothered to visit. That's not how it was, isn't it? Elena stood up, her composure cracking slightly. "Ryan and I were the ones who took him to doctor's appointments. We were the ones who held Mom when she cried because she missed you. We were the ones who dealt with everything while you played soldier." I wasn't playing anything. I was doing my job, a job that mattered, a job that protected people like you. Elena laughed, sharp and bitter. "Protected us from what? The only thing threatening this family was your absence." "Where's Ryan?" I looked around the empty house. Does he agree with all this, or is he just too much of a coward to face me? "Ryan's at work. And yes, he agrees. We both agreed that it was time to stop pretending you were coming back to be part of this family. We stopped waiting for you, Emily. We moved on." The silence stretched between us, filled with years of resentment and hurt. I could see it now, how Elena had twisted every missed holiday, every delayed call, every necessary absence into evidence of abandonment. She'd built a case against me in the court of family opinion, and I hadn't even known I was on trial. "The money," I said quietly. "Dad's inheritance. What happened to it?" Elena's jaw tightened. "That's none of your business." "Actually, it is. I was Dad's daughter, too. I was named in his will." "In his old will? The one that was written before we realized you'd chosen to make the army your real family." Elena returned to her papers, shuffling them like she was dealing cards. "The updated will reflects reality." "What reality? That I served my country?
that I sent money home to help support Mom, that I called every chance I got and wrote letters when I couldn't call. The reality that actions have consequences. You can't disappear for years and expect everything to remain frozen in time waiting for your return. I moved closer to the breakfast bar, noting how Elena tensed slightly. Show me the documents. I don't have to show you anything. Mom said she signed papers, power of attorney documents, a new will. I want to see them. And I want to see a lot of things. I wanted to see you at Dad's funeral. I wanted to see you helping Mom through her grief. I wanted to see you being a daughter instead of just a monthly check-in in the mail. Each word was designed to wound, and they were effective. But I'd been trained to function under fire. You don't let emotions compromise the mission. I'll see those documents, Elena, one way or another. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Is that a threat? Are you threatening me in my own home? Your home? Preparing and narrating the story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I'm the one who's been living here, taking care of Mom, handling Dad's estate. This is my home now. You mean Mom's home, the home she should be living in instead of that sterile prison you stuck her in. That sterile prison is costing us $3,000 a month, money that has to come from somewhere, money that has to be managed by someone responsible. $3,000 a month? For what? She's miserable there. She wants to come home. She wants a lot of things that aren't practical. She wants Dad back. She wants to be 30 again. She wants her daughter to actually act like a daughter instead of sending postcards from exotic locations. I saw it then, the jealousy that had been festering for years. Elena had stayed home, had been dutiful and present, and she resented that I had gotten to see the world while she had been trapped in small-town responsibility. But instead of talking about it, she let it poison her. I can take care of Mom now, I said. I'm home. You're home until the next deployment, until the next assignment, until the Army decides they need you somewhere else. Elena gathered her papers protectively against her chest. Mom needs stability, not another round of abandonment. I'm not abandoning anyone. My enlistment is up in 8 months. I'm not re-enlisting. That stopped Elena cold. What? I'm getting out. I've done my service. I want to come home and take care of the people I love.
For a moment, Elena looked genuinely surprised. Then her expression hardened again. Too little, too late. The decisions have been made. The papers have been signed. You don't get to waltz back in and undo everything just because you finally decided we might be worth your time. The front door opened and Ryan walked in, still wearing his work shirt from the auto repair shop. He stopped short when he saw us facing off across the kitchen island. Oh, hey, Emily. His voice was carefully neutral, but I could see the guilt in his eyes. Ryan! I turned to face him fully. Elena was just explaining how you both decided to cut me out of the family. He looked between us uncomfortably. It wasn't like that. Then how was it? I asked, because Mom seems to think I agreed to put her in a care facility. She thinks I said she was too much trouble to deal with. Ryan's face went pale. Elena, I said what needed to be said to make difficult decisions easier. Don't second-guess me now. You lied to her, I said to Ryan. You let Elena lie to our mother about what I wanted. Emily, you don't understand how hard it's been. Then help me understand, show me the documents, explain the decisions, help me figure out how to make this right. Ryan looked at Elena, then back at me. The conflict was written across his face. I think maybe we should all sit down and there's nothing to discuss, Elena said sharply. Emily made her choices. We made ours. The matter is settled. But I could see cracks forming. Ryan wanted to tell me something. The guilt was eating at him, and Elena's defensiveness suggested she knew her position wasn't as solid as she wanted me to believe. I'm going to see those documents, Elena. I'm going to find out exactly what you did and how you did it, and then I'm going to fix it. She smiled, but it was cold and sharp.
Good luck with that. You'll find that absent soldiers don't have much legal standing when it comes to family matters. I headed toward the door, then turned back. You might want to remember something, sister. I didn't spend the last decade learning how to give up when things get difficult. I learned how to fight. As I walked out, I heard Ryan say quietly, "Elena, maybe we should—" "Don't," she cut him off. "Just don't." I sat in my rental car for a long moment, hands gripping the steering wheel. Elena thought she'd won because she'd been here, because she had manipulated an elderly woman and convinced a guilt-ridden brother to stay silent. She thought geography and legal documents made her untouchable. But I'd learned something in the army that Elena had never grasped. Battles aren't won by the person who throws the first punch. They're won by the person who's still standing when the smoke clears. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for. Colonel Marcus Hayes had been my commanding officer for 3 years. He'd become a mentor, someone who'd taught me that strength wasn't just about individual capability, it was about knowing when to call for backup. The phone rang twice before his familiar voice answered. "Emily Carter, I was wondering when I'd hear from you." "Colonel," I said, surprised by how steady my own voice sounded, "I need help." The house felt different at 2 a.m. Shadows stretched across familiar rooms, transforming childhood memories into something alien and hostile. I'd waited until Elena's bedroom light went dark before slipping back inside with my spare key, the one hidden under the loose brick by the back steps that Dad had shown me when I was 12. Moving through the darkened hallway, I felt like I was conducting a night reconnaissance mission. Every creak of the old floorboards sounded amplified in the silence. But this wasn't enemy territory in Afghanistan. This was my childhood home, and I was searching for evidence of my sister's betrayal. Dad's old study was exactly where I remembered it, though Elena had clearly made changes. The warm, lived-in chaos of books and papers had been replaced by cold organization. File cabinets lined one wall, each drawer labeled in Elena's precise handwriting. Medical records, legal documents, financial statements, estate planning. Estate planning. That's where I'd find my answers. The drawer was locked, but years of military training had taught me resourcefulness. The letter opener on the desk was thin enough to work the simple mechanism. Inside, manila folders were arranged with military precision that would have impressed my drill sergeant. The first folder made my blood run cold. Carter Family Trust, revised 2024. The date was from 6 months ago, while I was still deployed. I pulled out the documents and spread them across the desk, using my phone's flashlight to read. The original will was straightforward. Dad had left the house to Mom with the understanding that it would be divided equally among the 3 children upon her death. His life insurance and savings were to be split 3 ways immediately, with a portion set aside for Mom's care. This new document told a different story. Emily Carter was mentioned only once in a section titled Exclusions Due to Military Service Commitment. The language was legal and cold, stating that due to my extended absence and inability to contribute to family care responsibilities, my inheritance was being redistributed to family members capable of providing direct support.
Elena had been awarded full control of the house and 60% of the estate. Ryan received 30%. I got nothing. But it wasn't the financial betrayal that cut deepest. It was the addendum, written in Dad's handwriting, but clearly composed under pressure. Emily has made it clear, through her actions, that her commitment to military service supersedes her family obligations. We respect her choice and wish her well in her chosen career path. Dad would never have written those words. He'd been proud of my service, had bragged to his VFW buddies about his daughter the soldier. This addendum read like Elena's voice, disguised in Dad's careful script. I photographed every page with my phone, my hands surprisingly steady despite the rage building in my chest. Then I moved to the next folder,
power of attorney, Margaret Carter. The documents were equally damning. Mom had signed over complete financial and medical decision-making authority to Elena, with Ryan as secondary. But the most disturbing part was the affidavit attached. Mom's signed statement that she was making this decision because her oldest daughter had expressed disinterest in family responsibilities due to career obligations. Another lie. Another manipulation of an elderly woman's trust. I was photographing the last page when I heard a floorboard creak behind me. Find what you were looking for? I spun around to find Ryan standing in the doorway, still fully dressed despite the late hour. His face was pale in the light from my phone. How long have you been standing there? I kept my voice low, mindful that Elena's room was directly above us. Long enough. He stepped into the study and closed the door behind him. Emily, you don't know the whole story. Then tell me. I gestured to the documents scattered across the desk. Tell me how our sister convinced Dad to write me out of his will. Tell me how she got Mom to sign over her rights. Tell me how you let it happen. Ryan's face crumpled. It wasn't supposed to go this far. How far was it supposed to go? He slumped into Dad's old chair, suddenly looking older than his 26 years. After Dad died, Elena was different, angry all the time. She kept saying how unfair it was that you got to travel the world while we dealt with everything, how you sent money like that solved everything, but money couldn't replace presence. She wasn't wrong about that, I admitted. I know I missed a lot. But you were serving your country. Dad understood that. Mom understood that. Elena, she saw it as abandonment. So she decided to make it official? It started small. She convinced Mom to let her handle the finances after Dad died. Said it would be one less thing for Mom to worry about. Then she started talking about updating the will, making it more realistic, given your situation.
And you went along with it? Ryan's laugh was bitter. I tried to argue, but Elena can be very persuasive when she wants something. She painted this picture of Mom alone in this big house, us struggling to care for her with no help from you. She made it sound like we were protecting everyone, including me. She said you'd be relieved, that you could focus on your career without feeling guilty about family obligations. Ryan looked up at me with haunted eyes. I wanted to believe her because it was easier than fighting. I studied my younger brother's face in the dim light. But you stopped believing her. When we moved Mom to Sunset Manor, Elena said it was temporary, just until we could figure out a better solution. But then she started talking about selling the house, about Mom being too far gone to make her own decisions. Ryan's voice broke slightly. Mom's not gone, Emily. She's lonely and confused, but she's still Mom. And Elena's been telling her that you agreed to everything, that you thought it was best. Why didn't you stop her? I tried, but every time I brought it up, Elena would remind me about all the times you weren't here, all the emergencies you missed, all the birthdays and holidays. She'd say, Ryan, if Emily cared about this family, she'd be here. And part of me thought she was right. The silence stretched between us, filled with years of accumulated guilt and resentment. But she wasn't right, Ryan continued quietly. You were doing your job, your duty, and Elena used that against you in the worst possible way. I gathered the documents and put them back in the folders. How much of the estate is left? Ryan winced. That's the other thing you need to know. Elena's been spending a lot. The new car, home improvements, expensive clothes. She says it's family money, and she's managing it responsibly, but I did quick math in my head. Dad's life insurance had been substantial, plus his retirement savings and the value of his half of the house. It should have been enough to care for Mom comfortably for years. How much is left? Maybe 40% of the original amount, if that. The betrayal was complete. Elena hadn't just cut me out of the family, she'd stolen Mom's security and Ryan's future in the process. Ryan,
I need you to understand something. I'm going to fight this. All of it. And it's going to get ugly. He nodded slowly. I know. And Emily, I'm sorry. I should have stood up to her. I should have protected Mom. I should have called you myself. You can help me now. How? I held up my phone, showing him the photos I'd taken. By telling the truth about what really happened, by helping me prove that Elena manipulated Mom and forged Dad's intentions. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small digital recorder. What's that? Insurance, he said. I've been recording my conversations with Elena for the past month, ever since she started talking about having Mom declared incompetent so she could sell the house. He handed me the device. I didn't know what to do with them, but maybe they can help. I took the recorder, feeling like I'd just been handed ammunition for a war I was finally ready to fight. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Ryan said. Elena's not going to give up without a fight. And she's got legal documents on her side. Then we'll get better lawyers. As we prepared to leave the study, Ryan caught my arm. Emily, there's something else. Someone else who might be able to help. Who? Angela Ramirez. Remember her? Your friend from high school? She's been checking on Mom at the facility. She's a nurse now, works at the VA hospital. She's been asking questions about Mom's care that have Elena worried. Angela. I hadn't thought about her in years, but the memory of my childhood friend brought a spark of hope. If she was involved, if she'd been watching out for Mom. Does Elena know she's been visiting? Not regularly. Angela's been careful, but she left her card with Mom and told her to call if she needed anything. Elena found it and threw it away, but not before I saw the number. I smiled for the first time since coming home. Sounds like I need to make a phone call. Colonel Marcus Hayes answered on the second ring, his voice alert despite the early hour. Emily Carter, I was wondering when I'd hear from you. I was sitting in my rental car outside a 24-hour diner, having left the house before Elena woke up. The parking lot was empty except for a few long-haul truckers grabbing coffee and breakfast. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed over red vinyl booths that probably been there since the 1970s. Colonel, I need help. I figured as much. It's 0630 Hunter on a Tuesday, and you sound like you've been up all night. What's the situation? The relief of hearing his voice was overwhelming. Colonel Hayes had been my commanding officer during some of the toughest missions of my career. He'd seen me at my worst and helped me become better. More than that, he'd become the kind of mentor who genuinely cared for his soldiers' welfare. It's my family, sir. My sister has been manipulating legal documents while I was deployed. She's convinced my mother to sign over power of attorney and changed my father's will to cut me entirely. My mother is in a care facility she doesn't want to be in, and my sister is burning through the family estate. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Elder abuse? Among other things, financial fraud, document manipulation, possibly forgery. And she used my deployment status against me, told everyone I didn't want family responsibilities. Son of a bitch, the colonel's voice went hard. Where are you now? Back home in Ohio. I got back yesterday and discovered the whole mess. Do you have evidence? Some documents, recordings. My brother is willing to testify about what really happened. Good. But Emily, this isn't a military matter. You need civilian legal help, and you need it from people who understand both family law and veterans' rights. I know, sir, but I don't know where to start. And Elena has had months to build her case. She's got legal documents that look legitimate. Looking legitimate and being legitimate are two different things, especially when they involve manipulating elderly family members. The colonel paused, and I could hear him typing. I'm sending you contact information for Sarah Chen. She's a lawyer who works with our Veterans Legal Advocacy Program, specializes in cases where military families have been targeted for financial abuse while service members were overseas. That's actually a thing? Unfortunately, yes. Predators specifically target military families because they know the service member is overseas and can't immediately respond. Sometimes it's strangers, sometimes it's family members who think they can get away with it because the soldier is gone. The anger in his voice matched my own. What can she do? Chen's good, really good. She's helped dozens of veterans reclaim stolen assets and exposed several family members who thought military deployment was an opportunity for theft. His voice softened slightly. Emily, I want you to understand something. This isn't your fault. You served with honor and distinction. You sent money home to support your family. The fact that someone in that family betrayed your trust doesn't reflect on you.
I felt tears prick at my eyes for the first time since this started. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. This is going to be a fight, and it might get uglier before it gets better. Your sister isn't going to give up easily, especially if she's been living off that money. I'm ready for a fight. I know you are. But remember, this isn't Afghanistan. You can't solve this with military tactics alone. You need allies, legal representation, and documentation. Chen will help you build a proper case. I wrote down the contact information he gave me. Sir, there's something else. My mother is in a care facility that's costing $3,000 a month, but she's miserable there. My friend from high school is a nurse and has been checking on her. I think between the two of them, we might have evidence that the care isn't appropriate for Mom's actual needs. Good. That's the kind of detail that can unravel your sister's justifications. If she placed your mother in expensive care that wasn't medically necessary, it shows financial motivation rather than genuine concern. Colonel, I don't know how to repay you for this. You don't need to repay me. You need to fight back and reclaim what's yours. Then, you need to take care of your mother the way you intended to all along. His voice became more formal. Emily, I'm proud of your service, and I'm proud that you're handling this the right way. You could have come back and started a family war. Instead, you're gathering evidence and seeking proper legal help. I learned from the best. Call Chen today. Don't wait. The longer this drags out, the more time your sister has to hide assets or create new complications. After hanging up, I sat in the parking lot for a few minutes, watching the sun rise over the small town where I'd grown up. For the first time since coming home, I felt like I had a plan. More than that, I felt like I had backup. Colonel Hayes was right. This wasn't a military operation, but it was still a mission, and I'd learned enough about missions to know that you don't go in alone if you don't have to. I dialed Sarah Chen's number, hoping she'd be an early riser. Chen Law Associates, this is Sarah. Miss Chen, my name is Staff Sergeant Emily Carter. Colonel Hayes from the Veterans Advocacy Program gave me your number. I need help with a family legal matter. Colonel Hayes mentioned you might call. Can you give me a brief overview of the situation? I spent the next 20 minutes laying out the whole story. Chen asked pointed questions about timing, documentation, and the specific legal instruments Elena had used. Her questions were thorough and professional, and I could hear her typing notes throughout our conversation. Staff Sergeant Carter, based on what you've told me, we potentially have several causes of action: fraud, elder abuse, breach of fiduciary duty, and possibly criminal conversion of assets. The fact that this was done while you were deployed adds another layer of legal protection under federal law. What are the chances of success? With proper documentation and witness testimony, very good. The recordings your brother made could be particularly valuable, especially if they show your sister admitting to misrepresenting your wishes to your mother. What's the first step? We need to meet in person, so I can review all the evidence. Can you come to my office today? I'm in Columbus, about an hour from where you are. I'll be there. Good. And, Staff Sergeant, bring copies of everything you found, including your military service records and deployment orders. We're going to show that while you were serving your country, your sister was betraying your family. That's not just a civil matter. It's a violation of everything military families are supposed to stand for. As I drove away from the diner, I realized I was no longer fighting this battle alone. I had allies now, professional help, and a plan of action.
Elena had counted on my absence to protect her. She was about to learn that coming home meant bringing reinforcements. Angela Ramirez looked exactly the same as she had in high school, just with shorter hair and laugh lines around her eyes. We met at a coffee shop near the VA hospital where she worked, a deliberately neutral location where we could talk without worrying about Elena's network of local connections. "Angela Ramirez," she said, standing to hug me as I approached her table. "I can't believe you're finally back. I can't believe you've been taking care of my mom while I was gone." Angela's expression grew serious as we sat down. "I wish I could have done more. Your sister, she's made it very difficult." I pulled out my phone and opened the recording app. "Angela, I need you to tell me everything. My lawyer says your testimony could be crucial. You're recording this? If that's okay, I want to make sure I don't miss anything important." She nodded and leaned forward, lowering her voice even though the coffee shop was nearly empty. "I started visiting your mom about 4 months ago. I was doing volunteer work at some of the local care facilities, and when I saw her name on the resident list at Sunset Manor, I had to check on her." "How did she seem?" "Confused, depressed. She kept asking me why you hadn't come to see her, why you hadn't called. And when I told her I was sure you'd call when you could, she said Elena had told her you didn't want to be bothered with family problems anymore."
The familiar stab of anger hit me. That's not true. I called every week, sometimes twice a week. I know. I figured Elena was intercepting the calls somehow, or maybe lying about them. So I started asking your mom specific questions about her care and her living situation. What did you find out? Angela pulled out a small notebook. First, the medical justification for her being there is questionable. Sunset Manor is designed for patients with moderate to severe dementia or significant physical limitations. Your mother has mild cognitive changes consistent with normal aging and grief, but nothing that requires 24-hour supervised care. Then why is she there? According to her file, Elena told the intake coordinator that Margaret was having dangerous episodes, forgetting to turn off the stove, wandering outside at night, becoming aggressive when confused. But when I talked to your mom, she had no memory of any of these incidents. I felt sick. Elena made it up? Either made it up or greatly exaggerated isolated incidents. I've been a geriatric nurse for 8 years, Emily. I know the signs of someone who needs facility care. Your mother shows none of them. What else? Angela flipped through her notebook. The medication regimen is concerning. She's on anxiety medications and sleep aids that weren't prescribed by her regular doctor. Dr. Hendricks at the facility started them after Elena reported that Margaret was having severe adjustment issues. Is that normal? It can be, but these particular medications can cause the kind of confusion and memory problems that would justify continued facility care. It's possible they're creating the symptoms they're supposed to be treating. Jesus, you're saying Elena might be drugging Mom to keep her compliant? I'm saying the medication levels are higher than I would expect for someone with your mother's actual symptoms. And when I visited her on days when she'd missed doses due to scheduling issues, she was significantly more alert and coherent. I stopped the recording and rubbed my temples. The scope of Elena's manipulation was staggering. There's more, Angela continued. I tried to discuss your mother's care directly with Elena, called her about a month ago, and suggested that maybe Margaret could be transitioned to a less restrictive environment. How did that go? Elena was hostile. She accused me of interfering in family business and said that as someone without children, I couldn't possibly understand the difficult decisions they'd had to make. She also made it clear that my visits weren't welcome. But you kept visiting. I kept visiting because your mother begged me to. She said Elena had forbidden her from calling anyone outside the facility without permission, and she was desperate for contact with the outside world. I restarted the recording. Angela, did my mother ever talk about the legal documents she signed? The power of attorney or the changes to my dad's will? She mentioned them several times. She was clearly troubled by the whole situation. She said Elena had brought a lawyer to the house and pressured her to sign papers while she was still grieving.
Your mom said she didn't understand most of what she was signing, but Lena kept telling her it was necessary to protect the family and that you had agreed it was the right thing to do. Did she believe that? Initially, yes, but as time went on, she started questioning it. She'd say things like, "Emily always called me. Why would she suddenly stop caring?" Or, "This doesn't sound like something Emily would agree to." I think deep down she knew something was wrong, but Elena had isolated her so completely that she didn't know who to trust. Angela closed her notebook and looked at me directly. "Emily, there's something else you need to know. About 3 weeks ago, Elena came to the facility with another lawyer. They met with your mother privately for over 2 hours." "About what?" "I don't know for sure, but one of the staff members mentioned that they were discussing additional care directives. The next day, your mother seemed more withdrawn than usual. When I asked her about it, she said Elena was talking about moving her to a different facility, one that was more secure." More secure? "A locked facility for patients who need constant supervision due to severe dementia or behavioral issues." The implications hit me like a physical blow. Elena's trying to have her declared incompetent. That's what I think. And if she succeeds, your mother would lose any remaining legal rights to make decisions about her own care or finances. I thought about the timeline. Elena had moved quickly after Dad's death to gain power of attorney and manipulate the will. Now she was positioning for complete control by having Mom declared incompetent, and once that happened, Elena would have unlimited access to whatever remained of the estate, with no oversight from anyone. Angela, would you be willing to testify about all this, in court if necessary? Absolutely. I've been documenting everything because I was hoping someone would eventually ask the right questions. Your mother deserves better than this, and you deserve to know the truth about what happened while you were serving your country. Thank you. You have no idea how much this means to me. Angela reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Emily, I want you to know something. Your mother talks about you constantly. She's proud of your service, proud of the woman you've become. Elena may have convinced other people that you abandoned your family, but your mom knows better. She's been waiting for you to come home. For the second time in 2 days, I felt tears threatening. I'm going to bring her home, Angela, whatever it takes.
I know you will, and when you do, she's going to need some medical support to get off those unnecessary medications and regain her strength. I'd like to help with that, if you'll let me. I'd be grateful for your help. As we prepared to leave, Angela handed me a business card. That's my direct number at the VA hospital. Call me anytime. And Emily, Elena underestimated something important. What's that? She thought you'd come home alone. She didn't count on you having allies. Walking back to my car, I realized Angela was right. Elena's plan had depended on my isolation, on my lack of local connections after years of military service. She'd assumed I'd be too overwhelmed and too far removed from the community to fight back effectively. Instead, I was building a network of support that she couldn't anticipate or counter. Colonel Hayes, Sarah Chen, Angela, and now even Ryan were aligned against her manipulation. Elena had started this war, but she was about to discover that soldiers don't fight alone. Sarah Chen's office in Columbus was everything I'd hoped for: professional, organized, and filled with the quiet confidence of someone who knew how to win. She'd spent the morning reviewing every piece of evidence I'd brought: the doctored will, the power of attorney documents, Ryan's recordings, and Angela's detailed notes about Mom's care. "This is solid," she said, spreading the documents across her conference table. "Your sister made several critical mistakes." Such as? First, the timing. These documents were all executed within a 6-week period while you were deployed on a combat mission. That's going to look very suspicious to a judge, especially since your father had been in good health when you left. Sarah pulled up the original will on her laptop. Second, the language in the revised will doesn't match your father's usual speech patterns. I compared it to letters he wrote to the VA and other official correspondence. The phrasing about your commitment to military service superseding family obligations Sounds like your sister's voice, not his. Can we prove that? Potentially. I'm arranging for a handwriting analysis expert to examine the documents. But more importantly, we have your brother's reportings. She pressed play on Ryan's digital recorder. Elena's voice filled the room, clear and incriminating. Mom doesn't need to know Emily disagrees with the care plan. Sometimes you have to make decisions for people who can't see the big picture. That's her admitting to lying to your mother about your wishes. Combined with the medical evidence from your friend Angela, we have a strong case for elder abuse and fraud. What's our next move? We file for emergency guardianship of your mother and request an immediate psychiatric evaluation to determine her actual care needs. We also petition the court to freeze all remaining estate assets until this matter is resolved. The legal machinery was finally in motion, but Sarah's expression grew serious. Emily, I need to warn you. Your sister isn't going to take this quietly. When we file these papers, she's going to know you're fighting back. She might escalate. What do you mean? She might try to move your mother to that locked facility sooner than planned, or she might attempt to liquidate more assets before the court can freeze them. We need to move fast. I thought about Elena's expression during our confrontation. Cold, calculating, but with an undercurrent of desperation. She'd built her entire life around controlling the situation. When that control was threatened, there was no telling what she might do. How fast can you file the papers? This afternoon. But Emily, once we do this, there's no going back. Your family relationships will never be the same. I looked out the window at the Columbus skyline, thinking about Mom sitting alone in that sterile room, about Dad's manipulated well, about Ryan's guilt-ridden face. Some relationships are worth saving. Others need to end. The emergency hearing took place 3 days later in the Delaware County Family Court. Elena arrived with her lawyer, a sharp-dressed man who looked expensive and overconfident. She'd dressed carefully for the occasion. Conservative suit, minimal jewelry, the picture of a responsible family member. Ryan sat with me and Sarah, having officially switched sides after the court papers were served. Elena had tried to intimidate him to stay silent, but 48 hours of her threats had only strengthened his resolve. Judge Patricia Morrison was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd clearly seen every type of family dispute imaginable. She reviewed our filing with the careful attention of someone who understood that lives hung on the balance. Ms. Chen, your client is alleging fraud, elder abuse, and document manipulation. These are serious charges. Yes, Your Honor. Staff Sergeant Carter was deployed overseas serving her country when these documents were executed. She had no knowledge of the changes and specifically disputes the characterization of her wishes regarding her mother's care. Elena's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client has been caring for her elderly mother and managing family affairs in her sister's absence. The will changes were made at the explicit request of the deceased, who was concerned about his daughter's long-term commitment to the family. Judge Morrison turned to Ryan. Mr. Carter, you were present for these discussions with your father? Ryan's hands shook slightly, but his voice was steady. Some of them, Your Honor. But Elena told me that Emily had agreed to everything. I found out later that she had never spoken to Emily about any of it. You have evidence of this?
Sarah played the first recording. Elena's voice filled the courtroom. Emily doesn't need to know the details. She's made her choice to prioritize her career. We're just making it official. Elena's face went pale. Her lawyer whispered urgently in her ear. The judge reviewed Angela's medical assessment and the psychiatric evaluation we'd requested for Mom. Mrs. Ramirez, in your professional opinion, does Margaret Carter require the level of care she's currently receiving? Angela spoke clearly and confidently. No, Your Honor. Mrs. Carter shows no signs of dementia or cognitive impairment that would require facility care. Her confusion and depression appear to be related to her isolation from family and the medication regimen prescribed without proper medical justification. And the medications? They appear to be creating symptoms rather than treating them. With proper tapering and family support, Mrs. Carter could likely return to independent living. Elena finally spoke, her composure cracking. You don't understand what it's been like. I've sacrificed everything for this family while Emily played soldier around the world. I deserve... Miss Carter
Judge Morrison cut her off sharply. What you deserve is not the question before this court. The question is whether your mother was competent to make these decisions and whether she made them freely. Sarah stood. Your Honor, we have evidence that Miss Elena Carter systematically isolated her mother from outside contact, misrepresented her deployed sister's wishes, and manipulated an elderly woman during her time of grief. The judge was quiet for a long moment, reviewing the evidence. Then she looked directly at Elena. Miss Carter, did you tell your mother that Emily had agreed to the care facility placement? Elena's lawyer tried to object, but she answered anyway. I told her what needed to be said to make difficult decisions easier. That's a yes or no question. But did Emily actually agree to the placement? A long pause. No. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of the court reporter's fingers on her machine. I'm granting the emergency guardianship petition, Judge Morrison announced. Emily Carter is appointed temporary guardian of Margaret Carter pending a full competency evaluation. All estate assets are frozen immediately. Ms. Elena Carter, you are ordered to provide a complete accounting of all expenditures from the estate within 10 days. Elena stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. I'm the one who's been here. I'm the one who's made the sacrifices. Your sacrifices, the judge said coldly, do not give you the right to defraud your family members or abuse your elderly mother. This hearing is adjourned. The parking lot confrontation was inevitable. Elena waited by my rental car, her professional composure completely shattered. Her expensive suit looked wrinkled, her carefully styled hair disheveled. You have no idea what you've done, she said as I approached. I've protected our mother and exposed your lies. I protected this family. Elena's voice rose, attracting stares from other people leaving the courthouse. I stayed, I sacrificed, I gave up everything while you went off to play hero.
You stole from Mom. You forged Dad's will. You had her drugged to keep her compliant. I made hard decisions that you were too selfish to make. Ryan approached cautiously, staying close enough to help, but far enough to avoid Elena's immediate rage. Elena, he said quietly, it's over. You need to accept that. She turned on him with fury. You betrayed your own sister for someone who's never been there for us. No, Ryan said, standing straighter than I'd seen him since I'd been home. I finally stopped betraying the sister who's always been there for us, even from thousands of miles away. Elena's face crumpled, and for a moment I saw past her anger to the pain underneath. I needed you both, and you chose her. We chose the truth, I said. We chose what's right for Mom. Mom's going to die in that house without proper care. She's going to fall down the stairs, or forget to take her medication, or Mom's going to live with the daughter who loves her enough to put her needs first, with family who won't lie to her or drug her or steal from her. Elena looked between Ryan and me, realizing that her isolation was complete. This isn't over. Yes, it is, I said. The court orders are clear. Stay away from Mom, stay away from the house, and Elena, get help, real help, because this isn't who Dad raised you to be. She walked away without another word, her heels clicking on the asphalt like a countdown timer running out. Ryan and I stood in silence for a moment, watching her drive away in the silver sedan that probably was bought with Dad's money. Do you think she'll try something else? He asked. Maybe, but it doesn't matter. Mom's safe now, the money's protected, and Elena's going to have to face what she's done. I'm sorry, Emily, for all of it. I put my arm around my younger brother's shoulders. You chose the right side when it mattered, Ryan. That's what Dad would have wanted. As we walked to our cars, I realized that Elena had been wrong about one crucial thing. She'd assumed that distance meant abandonment, that physical absence equaled emotional disconnection. But family isn't just about geography. It's about the choices you make when everything's on the line. Today, my real family had chosen each other. Mom was home where she belonged, sitting in Dad's old chair with Mr. Peanuts on her lap. The living room felt warm again, filled with Angela's laughter, Ryan's sheepish grins, and Colonel Hayes's proud smile as he watched me arrange Mom's ceramic birds on the mantel.
You were always needed, Mom said softly, squeezing my hand. You always will be. I looked around at the faces surrounding us, not all blood family, but all real family. Sometimes the people who choose to stand by you matter more than those who share your name. This was home. This was worth fighting for.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.